Prime Minister Mark Carney is pushing, and he's pushing an aggressive trade diversification strategy to reduce Canada's reliance on the US, but the results are long-term while the risks are immediate. So why does it matter? Well, Carney is trying to future-proof our economy, but it could mean short-term costs and uncertainty. Diversifying beyond the US ahead of the CUSMA review. That is one thing, and it's becoming much more of a sore point, Eddie, with the folks south of the border. And, it looks good on them. However, there are those on one side of the argument who are quite worried about the fact that, we are poking the bear with some of these new trade deals, especially the one with China. However, the U.S. trades with China now and has been, and they're container ship after container ship full of Chinese goods are all headed to the U.S. every day of the week. So what's the big deal? Once again, it's the bully, I think, trying to push around the little guy in the schoolyard. What do you think?
I think so, Gary. I mean, you know what? We talked about this before, and there's plenty of customers. There are plenty of sellers all around the world, and if we're really trying to approach, from a business approach perspective, and every country should take it as a business for everyone. And you're right, Gary. It's coming over from
You're breaking up, Eddie.
San Diego or the Pacific Seaboard of the United States. They're always full of ships, container ships from China. While we were wintering in Mexico, saw the container ships from China too in Mexico on both the Pacific and the Caribbean side. So China is exporting everywhere, and the United States, they can't cry and claim poverty. They're also welcoming Chinese ships. So what's the big deal about another country that typically did trade, high-level trade with the United States? What's their pickle with us that we've decided to do business with China do trade with China as opposed to consistently put all our eggs in one basket in the United States, and they don't like it? Probably. I think there's a certain degree of that, but I would tend to agree with you, Gary. We've been poking the bear since day one, since he started with this when Carney took over and we started pushing back on the bear a lot harder and poking the bear, the bully doesn't like it anymore. So I think it has a lot to do with that. You don't push around Trump and his cronies. They don't like it, and they fight back with nothing more than rhetoric, to tell you the truth. And I don't, the Chinese, from what they said when Carney opened up better trade relations with them, they were pretty happy with that. And China is not afraid to critique the United States in terms of how they're dealing with global trade at this particular point in the game. So the babies are crying because we're not playing with them anymore. And you know what, Gary? I'm okay with that. I really am.
Yeah, so am I, Eddie. At this stage of the game, I'm tired of all of the foolishness that's gone on south of the border in relation to trade, and especially in relation to trade with Canada. And I think it is time, and I fully support Carney on this. And it doesn't matter if it had been Poilievre as Prime Minister and pursuing the same sort of idea of setting things up so that we are not so reliant on the U.S. and just brushing them aside whenever they whine and complain. I would have supported him in the same manner. This is, to me, not about party lines, although unfortunately Poilievre is making it about party lines, and we'll talk about that in segment 2, how that's working out for him. But we really do need to get into this. Now, just before we
Gary,
continue our
sorry for
discussion.
interrupting. I can't see you.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah,
I got so involved in,
I know you did.
damn. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, all right. So I just posted in our comments a question, and
Hmm.
simple yes or no answer, or a couple of line answer or whatever. Would you accept higher prices now for a more independent economy later? That's the question. We'd like to see what you think about that. Would you, yes or no? And if either yes or no, let us know why. In a few lines, and we'll share your thoughts along the way. But I really want to know, because I'm hearing two different stories here, Eddie. One side says Canadians are behind this, and the other side says they're not.
Hmm.
I think we are. We have over a year into this trade war and the crap that's gone on with Trump and company. And I think
Right.
we're even more resilient now and even more determined to just put this guy where he belongs, and that's out of our lives, for the most part, or at
Right.
least take him down a notch or two so that he respects us, because there's absolutely zero respect for us. However, you know what? That earns also zero respect from us.
Hmm.
You can't trust the
Absolutely.
guy. You can't trust any of his deals. And half of these, remember last year when he was trying, after rolling out the tariffs on April 2nd or 3rd, whatever,
Hmm.
in around that time, he should have just stuck with April 1st and gotten it over with, because they were nothing but April Fools anyway. And April Fools rolling these tariffs out and trying to bully other countries into it. However, the fact of the matter is, most of these, and it's exactly what Poilievre's been whining about, as far as, oh, they're all memorandums of understanding. Well, Trump didn't even have that much with some of these deals that he, blew the trumpets about. What a great
Right.
deal, I've struck with whatever country. He didn't even have really an MOU. They just had like an acknowledgement and a shake of hands.
If that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And off he goes. Oh, I've got another deal, blah, 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 blah. You are so full of it, buddy. Like, there's not a
Yeah.
true word that crosses your lips. Anyway,
Yeah. And
I'll
we'll talk about Mr. Polyev in the next segment, but you know, uh, criticizing the existing government under Carney about, oh, he's only got MOUs. Well, Gary, we talk about this extensively. Things start with a handshake, and then you get an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and then you take the next crucial steps where you bring all your experts in to actually negotiate a trade deal where somebody can actually put a signature to. This takes time. NAFTA took, I think, 3 years under the Mulroney government from handshake to MOU to come to fruition. What makes you think that any sort of renegotiation of elements within NAFTA are going to happen any quicker? Yeah, you got a baseline document down, which I believe is intact until 2036. But with the American government, they may just rip it up and throw it away, knowing them. Um, but yeah, these things do take time, and I think Prime Minister Carney, and I think also if Mr. Poilievre was in charge, my expectation is you don't trade anything, you don't exchange anything unless it makes sense for Canada. And I think if we have to take that hardline approach, I would be very disappointed if we didn't take that hardline approach, right? So that's the first point I wanted to make. And the second one to your question, Gary, that you posted here, would you accept higher prices now for a more independent economy later? Now, imagine we did not have the Trumpster fire in the United States who changed the ball game and is not playing by the rules anymore, right? I, for one, would still expect the Canadian government to continuously work on making our economy not dependent on one country, our trade with one country, which was the United States. Um, So you know what? If it wasn't for the dumpster fire, creating havoc in the world, driving prices up everywhere on everything because of his policies, right? Um, that's what's driving the prices up. So, the question of will we accept higher prices for a better independent economy? We don't have much of a choice to accept higher prices because of what this man is doing. It's unfortunately it's not under control, right? So
That's right.
what is the next? What does a country do like Canada? For that fact, what do all the countries in the world do? They realize they cannot depend on the United States anymore uh, for many reasons, namely the economy being one. And they have to go about business in making sure their department, their company, their country survives, not just short term and long term. So, you know what? I'll be the first one to say, I'd say yes, accepting higher prices now for a more independent economy later. Absolutely. I still think even if the prices were not going up, we still have to be looking for a more independent economy now or later because at some point something in the world is going to happen. This happened to be made by a I'm not going to say human being, but somebody that walks on two legs. He made some really bad decisions, and we're all suffering the consequences. Well, what about a global catastrophe? A meteor comes down, or some kind of natural earthquake, or something like that, right? You always need to be able to deal with these emergencies, and a lot of it has to do with your independent capability in dealing with things like this. So, my answer to your question, I'll be the first one to say yes, Gary. I hate
And
saying it. I'd rather not see the prices go up, but I don't think we have much of a choice here. It's not our fault.
they're going up anyway. So,
Yeah.
and Monel answered yes, but it can't be long term. And by
Mhm.
please drop your thoughts in a yes or a no and a quick line or two as to why you think yes or no. We want to hear from you. Let's get some conversation going here for sure. And also, by the way, if you're liking what you're seeing and hearing, then hit that subscribe button. Okay, let's have a look at a couple of other things here now, Eddie. Let's bring this up. Okay, let's look at Carney's trade gamble. So he wants to reduce Canada's reliance on the US ahead of this year's CUSMA review. And that's the direction that he's moving in right now, for sure. Coordination with the Mexican president. They have been meeting recently. And yes, that's what they're talking about is the negotiations or at least the presentations coming up in the CUSMA review because it's a review and basically it's
Right.
to decide whether to continue it for another 6 years, I think. Anyhow, they've been coordinating as they should because we're we're on each side of the U.S. and under the free trade agreement originally, like there was just a complete flow going back and forth across the borders of these three countries. It was a North American free trade agreement. And it made a whole lot of sense.
Mhm.
It really did and still does. It's just that somebody wants to try and bully companies into bringing all of their manufacturing back to the US. And they're not for various reasons. Some of them political, I'm sure, or they're based on politics, and others are straight economics as to being able to do partial assembly here and partial assembly there and everything flowing back and forth. Why wouldn't it be flowing back and forth freely? But
Right.
it's not. The Indo-Pacific push with big promises and long timelines. Yeah, there are some long timelines in payback on these deals that have been announced, and that's also irking the U.S. that we are in that Indo-Pacific push in the midst of that now and shoring up. Yes, India, one of the largest and growing economies in the world, great market over there, and you have companies like Apple even moving some of their manufacturing to India now as well.
That's right.
And they're looking at that market as potential, because how many more iPhones do you think they can actually sell in North America? Have they reached the
And why not bring
saturation
the
point?
manufacturing? And why not bring that manufacturing back to the United States if they're such supporters of the Trump regime and Trump wants to bring back manufacturing jobs to the United States? I'll tell you why, Larry. Nobody's going to work for nothing in the United States.
Yep,
And I'm
exactly.
not demeaning this. I'm not demeaning the salaries of whatever country they're proposing on putting their operations in, but that is the key reason as to why a lot of companies do not set up shop in the United States. Even American companies will send their manufacturing overseas. Well, if this is the United States government concern, right, about jobs being lost and opportunities being lost to other markets. Well, why don't you enforce your American companies to do exactly what you ask? And of course, we know that's not going to happen, but I just thought I'd throw that in there, Gary. I'm sorry, I couldn't hold it back.
No, but what you say
Oh,
is true. It
yeah,
really is true. So, you can't deny it by any source. So it's when you have countries like India, like I say, it's a growing economy, and a lot of other countries and a lot of companies within North America are looking at that market as a real high growth potential market. So why wouldn't they be looking there for these sorts of things? You know, um, what else is over there? They're fostering deals with Australia, partnerships on
right.
critical minerals, defense, and AI.
Hmm.
They're also looking going back to India, they're looking at energy, agriculture, and digital infrastructure. And in the Indo-Pacific group in general, they're looking at all of those opportunities. Yes, again, we're talking some long-term returns on investment. But pretty
Right.
much everything you do now, especially when you're dealing with trade, you may get an initial push bump, but it's the long term where you're going to get the most solid return and foster those partnerships, working partnerships. It doesn't take a mental giant like, for God's sakes, I'm no expert in A, trade, or B, economics. But even I can figure this out, that it's the long term where you're going to get the return on investments. So you have that part of it. And here's the other one and this just, I don't get it, Eddie. I just don't get it. The Buy Canadian program that Carney has rolled out. The Buy Canadian program. Think about that for a minute. Why wouldn't we
Hmm.
be buying Canadian first if we can? I don't understand what the issue is with that, other than they're just greedy. They want everything. And they're so used to getting their own way. They have a Buy American policy, for God's sakes. What's the difference? Explain to me
Hmm.
that. Because
I
dummy here
I
just
can't.
can't seem to understand it.
Well, let's look at it from you and I as consumers, right? The grocery stores, gas, car parts, or whatever, restaurants, or doesn't matter what. You go to a grocery store. It used to be that I would look at price and quality and do a comparison. I very, very rarely looked at the box and checked on where it was made. But since all this stupidity and craziness started a year and some odd months ago, I look at price, I look at quality, and then I'll turn over and look at the box. And I'll be very honest, if I see made in the USA, or the majority of it is made in the USA or grown in the USA, I will not buy it. I will spend a few more cents and spend my money elsewhere. Priority, Canadian. Buy Canadian. That's exactly what I've been doing. And you know what? I'll go through grocery stores, and just like me, I've got my barcode scanner, tells me where it was made, how much of it was made in Canada, and it'll give me alternatives to Canada. Everywhere I look around, is people are doing the same thing. They're scanning, looking at their phones, doing the same thing I am, which is why this Buy Canadian movement is so strong and it continues to grow. So absolutely, Gary. Did you and I need a kick in the shins to actually realize, you know what? I've been an idiot my entire adult life where I did not focus on buying Canadian. And I feel bad for that. So I needed that kick in the shins, and I'm very proud that I'm very happy that it kicked me in the shins for a bad reason. And I'm doing my part to support Canadian business and Canadian operations.
There's a lot of Canadian product available. We just have to, really, and Canadians are making an effort to find it, support it. And the more we support it, the more it'll come out. And Trump and company can take their whining about Buy Canadian and wrap it around their Buy American. Our federal contracts now are being prioritized for Canadian companies. Mm-hmm. As well they should be. Is this not what Bozo is hollering about? He wants, more American companies or companies coming to America and prioritizing them as American companies producing materials, and that you're going to buy American first. There is absolutely no logic. Now, some people are suggesting these, deals like the Indo-Pacific deals and the Buy Canadian policy. It's, like they sound big, but they take years to deliver on. And are we seeing benefits or just headlines? Well, the Buy Canadian one in particular, some have suggested it's economic patriotism. Yeah, you're damn right it is. And I don't have an issue with that. And others are saying, or is it the start of a trade war mindset? No, it's not the start. It's the result. And out of all of what's gone on in the last year and a half, I would humbly suggest, no, not humbly, I would suggest that it's been beneficial for Canadian companies because all of a sudden, we're taking a second look at everything. And why shouldn't we be buying and supporting Canadian companies first?
Right. And then to your original point to the segment, Gary, when you had said that damn right we're being bullied. That's the reason why we have these higher prices, and they're pissed because the bully doesn't like being pissed. I think also you have to take into consideration. Yes, we've opened up the doors a little more to China, but the Americans, the United States of America, from an economy perspective, it isn't just Canada that's doing. That's promoting a Buy Canada, that's going out and looking for alternatives. It's the other countries in the world too. They're kind of looking at and saying, why would I want to do business with the United States if I can't really trust them? What about all the companies in my country? Let's say France that have these companies that have these contracts with American interest, and all of a sudden the American companies can't abide by their their agreements overseas because tariffs have been put in place. So all of a sudden, this company in France that has been buying product from the United States, the company in the States can buy because they're more tariffed. They're being highly tariffed. Let's say somebody agreed to buy 40,000 pieces. Now only 10,000 pieces. What happens to the company who made all this stuff in France? So other countries are doing the same thing that you and I and our governments have been doing. The French are promoting a Buy French practice. The Germans are, the Brits are, everybody across the planet is got that kick in the shin. The governments did, the companies did, and the consumers are also doing the same thing. And it's not easy, and it's not difficult to find instances of Buy National or Buy Canadian or Buy French or Buy German. It's happening all over the place. So I think the big bully is not just reacting to us specifically. We just happen to be their neighbors, unfortunately. They're reacting to what the global economy is doing to the United States as a result of the havoc that they actually created. So the bully is being beaten up from multiple fronts. I think is more the issue here, and they're gonna wow and whine about it more and more and more, and not take responsibility for anything that this entire global economical turmoil started with one person standing on two fat ankles, literally. This is where it started.
Speaking of Europe and the UK, that's another part of Carney's apparent strategic backup plan. He's meeting with Starmer to deepen ties with the UK, moving toward a permanent post-Brexit trade deal, and Europe as a hedge against U.S. instability, and quietly building that plan B if Washington turns hostile. Well, geez, wouldn't you say they've already turned hostile? But maybe I missed the memo somewhere.
Well, you got to be politically correct in your statements, right?
Yeah. So, and some of the other things that we're looking at apparently is a carbon border adjustment mechanism in development. That sounds like some kind of new, I would suggest, tariff or charge of some sort for things coming across the border. I'm not quite sure what that meant. $6 billion trade infrastructure push, like ports, rail, and non-U.S. exports. So, we're building the system to trade differently. And that also means we're not just signing deals here, but we're putting our money where our mouths are with improvements to ports and opening of new ports, like one in the north, in different, improving rail transportation across the country. Because remember, folks, when Energy East went down the tubes, the pipeline between Alberta and the East Coast, remember this, that it all moves by rail now. What oil we can get from the west to the east coast goes by rail.
There's only so much patience that me, along with a lot of people in Canada, are going to have with Mr. Carney. Yeah, a lot of these deals are long-term, Gary, for sure. Okay. And there's two things I have to remind myself of. He's cleaning up, I'd say, 15 years of mess right now, which basically speaks to the last 3 or 4 elections, which comprised of a conservative government led by Harper, and then transitioning to the Trudeau government in the Liberals. So Mr. Carney is cleaning up 15 years of mess. Okay, that A, will not happen overnight in the best of circumstances. B, we have Mr. Trump creating havoc in the world, which is not easy to deal with in the midst of a CUSMA renegotiation. But at some point, we're going to be looking for results. Now, this is where the patience comes in, and everybody's patience is different. How long are people going to wait for results, and what are those going to look like? And you know what? That's a pretty hard question to answer. I don't care if you're the smartest person on earth, or you have some sort of a crystal ball that you can tell people what this is going to look like. We just don't know. So that just lays an opportunity for political pundits to constantly pound on, well, when we're going to see this.
Our takeaway from this is it's a long-term strategy, but Canadians are going to feel the short-term pressure first.